Work hard, hit your deadlines, do good work, and don't create drama. I've been in the animation business for 25 years now. I was actually a history major in college.
I'm from New Jersey. I went to a small school in New Jersey. It was like a good old compromise with my parents about like, hey, I want to be an artist. And they're like, no, you should be a lawyer. And I'm like, not doing that.
I'm a storyboard artist for the Loud House. I got into Nickelodeon by being a finance intern. And then I was able to do basically a production internship. And then I went into a production assistant role on SpongeBob.
I actually started as a Flash animator first, and I've actually been working in the industry going on, I think 11 years. A lot of people are kind of shocked because they think I'm like 25. I started as an animator first, so what I learned along the way, like in smaller studios, it is kind of a lot more work and you have to do multiple job titles. So at one point, I literally was doing like 6 jobs. Like I was a director, character designer, character rigger, storyboarder. I was IT at one point because the IT guy quit. I was an animator and I realized I want to be the storyteller. So I decided to switch it up and I tried to test for Teen Titans Go and I actually failed the test. Because I decided to be too much on model, so they did not like it. After I failed the test, which is like, that's the whole point of like kind of failing as you learn, I decided to take an online course for storyboarding, and I basically increased my skills from there. 4 years later, I tested for Teen Titans Go again, and I actually passed. So then my first like big job was in 2016 at Warner Brothers for Teen Titans Go. And then after that, I was on Trolls The Beat Goes On, and now I am at Nickelodeon working on the Casagrandes, which I have to say, Nickelodeon has definitely been my favorite studio experience so far.
I was a PA for about a year, and then I actually tested for the Casagrandes, and it was for a story revisionist role, and it didn't get picked up there, but then the Loud House ended up looking at my test and liking it, and I was sent there for a revisionist job. And then I was a revisionist on the Loud House for about a year. Then now I've been boarding for a little bit now. My main job is just a storyboard. I did, there's a Loud House short that went out called King of the Chair, and I actually got to write and co-direct that. So that was pretty cool.
Isn't it beautiful? Charles, no!
I graduated during the 2008 recession, so haha me. And I worked a few years in retail, then decided, you know what? Hail Mary, let's go to California, try to find a job out here. I went to a few local schools where I learned how to storyboard. Eventually I built up enough of a portfolio and I met enough people that eventually they sort of put my stuff out there and was like, hey, this person's pretty good at boarding, you know, maybe give her a shot. And I eventually got my break in on some non-union studios, and then I had my first union show at DreamWorks, and then I came here.
I did not go to any schooling for animation whatsoever, but I did draw a comic strip all through college and got into Warner Brothers as a production assistant. The environment, this is the mid-90s, was similar to how it is now, where there's just so much work and there's just not enough talent. So a lot of people that are new to the business are getting opportunities as they are today. So that's how I kind of snuck my way into a prop design job, and then I moved on to storyboards, and I did that for 24 years, 25 years. I joined SpongeBob about 15 years ago. After the second SpongeBob film, I started directing on the show. Myself and Sherm Cohen are the two supervising directors. We oversee specific episodes of SpongeBob from beginning to end. I'm a part of retakes, I'm a part of the whole process, but storyboarding is front and center on every single episode.
Every 6 weeks I come in, I get like a script handout, and then, you know, we go over the script, we read it over, we talk about like how the episode's gonna go, oh, what are we trying to do here? And then they'll be like, okay, go, have fun. And I'll be like, okay, see you guys in like 2-3 weeks. And I'll thumbnail out the whole episode and then show it to my director, and he'll be like, okay, well, like fix it up here and there, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll kind of adjust those notes, and like we'll kind of have a little good back and forth on like, oh, this is how we want the episode to like look a little bit better. And then we'll be like, okay, another 3 weeks, here we go, clean it up, and then that's it. Hand it in, and then repeat the cycle over and over again.
I think most people, before they really know what storyboarding is, view storyboards as comic strips. Because there's such a demand for talent right now, on our show, we have some artists that, really don't have a whole lot of knowledge of storyboarding that we've brought in, and we're just kind of training on the job. In our case, the skills of the storyboarding is something we could teach, but what we can't teach is people having drawing skills and having passion and actually loving to draw. For me, would I be in the business today had it not been a business that was really needing talent desperately in the mid-90s? I don't know. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I learned things like, composition. There's such a thing as composition. It matters. And directing the viewer's eye, where the eye is going to go. And these are all little things I picked up along the way from directors I worked with. One of the best experiences I had was I worked at a Flash animation website called icebox.com. What was cool about that was we jumped from project to project to project, and every single project was a different style. One of the things I learned is how important it is for a storyboard artist to be able to jump from style to style, to diversify, to be able to not just do one look, but be able to do a variety of looks and styles, not only of drawing style, but humor or action. They all have very, very different requirements and needs.
I went to San Jose State for an animation illustration program, and the one thing that I would stress the most in terms of education is don't break your bank. Like, you don't need to go to Cal Arts to get an animation job, and especially in the day of internet, if you're graduated from college already, there are so many opportunities online for you to learn, to pick up free resources, to apply your knowledge. And so I would really strongly recommend that.
I remember when I got into the business without going to art school, I was surrounded by people that were saddled with enormous debt. And I felt like I kind of snuck in the back door, and I had this, advantage because I didn't have this student loan I had to pay every month. So I would recommend, if you can get around doing it, which it kind of seems like you kind of can nowadays. There's nothing wrong with going to school, but if you can avoid putting yourself in debt, it might be something worth considering.
For me too, something that really bridged the gap in terms of my artistic journey and getting into storyboarding was when I was on SpongeBob as a production assistant, and seeing everyone's art and seeing kind of what the standard was, it helped me to relearn that there's drawing and then there's also cartooning. And cartooning is something totally different from life drawing, for example. There are principles that apply, but there are so many ways you can exaggerate and push and focus on volume. And so for me, when I was absorbing all this information and saying, okay, what's the fastest way I can express this emotion or this feeling in a pose, looking at the SpongeBob work really helped me get that. And then another big thing that kind of, I think, pushed my work personally into the edge of being hireable was when I took the test that finally got me a job. Was I really focused on delivering something that was both clear and lively, but also clean. I think a lot of people misinterpret storyboarding as you can be as chicken scratchy or rough as possible. Or a lot of people go, okay, well, you don't have to be on model, right? And it's no, you do have to be on model, and you also have to push it and make it lively, but you don't have to make it so tight that it's stiff.
I will admit that my art major at my school was not necessarily the best. So they were definitely more into fine arts and photography, but I was the only hardcore animator student over there. But when I came here and I took some classes at CDA, I had some really good mentors, really good people that really pushed me to my limits. While on the side I was making comics, I was trying to make original work. I always had that love of storytelling and trying to find a way to tell stories while drawing. A good way would probably be to study film. Don't just watch cartoons. You can watch everything. You can watch the good stuff, see what works there. You can watch the bad stuff once you understand why the good stuff works. And that's what I do in my off time. I'll just watch cartoons. I'll watch TV shows and be oh, I really love that shot, really love that composition, and start building that library in my brain with shots I love, shots I don't like. And then everything else is a really cool logic puzzle to me. And that's what I really love about storyboarding is trying to figure out if I need to get to this really cool shot that I want to do here to emphasize this moment, how do I get there? And then be okay, well, now that I got there, does it work? Do I need to flip some characters? Do I need to rearrange some things? And that's the part I really find thrilling about my job.
Ever since I was a kid, I know I wanted to make cartoons. A lot of people when I was growing up would either be one, their parents didn't support it because they're you won't make money in it, or they just didn't have that backing for it. But ever since I was a kid, I wanted to make cartoons. What led me seriously to storyboarding was just I actually did want to be an animator first. And so I pursued that a lot more. And even like growing up, my art teachers would get mad because I was a kid still drawing cartoons when they said draw still life. What I really enjoy about storyboarding now is like we all get a chance to portray our own voice. That's kind of the biggest thing I always tell people when they're asking like, how do I make my storyboard stand out? And it's about finding like what your sense of humor is. I've worked hard to that point where like people know my boards and they know my humor. So the more you board, the more comfortable you'll be like who you are as a board artist and what makes you laugh. So when people are like, how do I be funnier? To be honest, like I'm just storyboarding what I think is funny. Basically, as a storyboard artist, there's points where like time crunch, you're gonna run out of time, and like sometimes you don't address all the network notes or notes that are for your clean pitch. So the revisionist job from there is basically to address the notes that were missed and like give the boards a little more love is what we call it. You know, like touch it up and make them like cleaner and clearer. As a board artist, the biggest difference is you have to like storyboard, you know, like what's happening. And revisionist, like you're just fixing, if that makes sense. Revisionist, you're more like, that's a good way to practice like studying shots that storyboard artists use and working on your draftsmanship. Whereas like storyboard artists, it's like, okay, I've done this and now I am storyboarding, I'm determining how the episode looks and doing all that stuff.
Being a revisionist, it's technical, it's about your draftsmanship too. And also when you're a revisionist, it's like a puzzle, right? Like you have all the pieces, you just need to make it work. Whereas when you're a board artist, you have a blank slate entirely. So your job is to just get it there and put it on the screen and get it out there and make it work. But then if it doesn't, the revisionist comes in and kind of picks up those pieces and fiddles with it. And it could not even be a storyboard artist's fault. It could be like, hey, the network wants to go in this direction with this scene. So now we need to take what's here, but make it reflect what the network is saying.
If you guys watch a lot of the Blizzard cinematics, when they do stuff for like World of Warcraft and Overwatch, like those are good to watch for like feature shots and just like their cinematography is really good in those. Instagram itself is pretty big. So like every time I go on Instagram or like Twitter or any of those big art things, I think it encourages me as well as like super intimidates you. And someone's like, I drew this in half an hour and it's like digital crazy art. I don't know. But the internet itself is like an endless realm of reference too.
I love anything like Nintendo, like super cartoony. I like absorb concept art books for like video games, like it's candy. I definitely recommend something that I think a lot of people don't realize is a really good practice is taking screenshots of cartoons that you really like and you want to emulate, and then just throwing them in Photoshop, lower the opacity, and just trace over it and see like what you can learn and absorb from that. That was something that really helped me. I used to look at a lot of like Mickey Mouse shorts, and I would take pictures of the hand drawings because in the Mickey Mouse shorts, his hands are so expressive and you can really just capture those in a still and kind of trace it and be like, okay, I get how to draw a cartoon hand now. And you can apply that later and kind of shape it into a different style of hand or whatever. But don't just consume it, but think about how the workings are of each posing and each camera angle and the perspective shots that they're doing. Not only take inspiration from things, but learn from it.
I love Pokemon, Animal Crossing. I really love like really unique art styles, really unique takes of things. So like I love Madoka. It has some really cool like 2D integration with their shots. I love Land of the Lustrous. That one really opened my mind to like how CG could be utilized to its fullest, because I've been working in CG shows for pretty much most of my career. Just trying to find like cool new ways to like use the 3D camera in storyboards. It's heckin' hard, but it's like so much fun when you pull it off right.
Up top!
I find myself actually getting inspired by other artists quite a bit. We've had a lot of just amazing talent come through our doors on SpongeBob over the years that have been just inspiring to see this new energy come into the business.
I've told someone this before. They like showed me their Instagram and they're like, so here's my art. But then like before you get to the art, there's like rows and rows of just like them on the beach. So I was kind of telling people, if you really are focusing on like your online portfolio, make sure you make a separate account that is just kind of like your art, because people don't want to like scroll through all like your photos to get to your art. So that's kind of like the big thing, because you have to like remember, you don't know how fast people are going to look through different sites and portfolios. So definitely like put your strong work first on whatever social media you're kind of using.
What I find good, at least for a storyboard portfolio, and this is kind of like the guidelines that I've made for it, which is to have about 2 to 3 storyboards of your best work. They don't have to be like eons long. Like I have like a 400 panel one. I'm like, don't do that. Maybe keep it short, have a good clear beginning, middle, and end. you kind of want to show off your drawing skills. So like if you want to show off, you can draw humans, do one with humans, and then do one with animals because kids love talking animals. Kind of know your audience a little bit too, because like, you know, we are in cartooning, so like nothing too inappropriate unless you want to work for like Rick and Morty or whatever, like the adult animation stuff. Just like understanding you should cater your portfolio to what people are currently watching or the kinds of shows that you want to work on, because it's going to show that you aren't passionate about like certain things that you're trying to put in your boards. Like I'm not as passionate about drawing cars, explosions, and like people punching each other. I love martial arts, but like it's not my main thing, but I like a good mix of action and comedy. So like that's what I've catered my portfolio to, is like towards like storytelling, action, comedy. Just having a good website or someplace to go to would be great. I would recommend even just a free blog spot. Just make it super easy, super accessible. Don't make people click through like 5 links to get to the work.
When shows are looking for artists and they're scrolling through portfolios, one of the things they're kind of looking for is their show, looking for something that reminds them of their show. You know, something that says, this person can do Loud House, or this person can do Rugrats, or whatever. One thing I did actually worked was years ago, my first job at Nickelodeon, there was an opening at Fairly Odd Parents, and I was on a show that was completely not Fairly Odd Parents. And so what I did is I just spent a couple hours and I drew up a couple pages for my portfolio of sketches in the Fairly Odd Parents style, dropped them in my portfolio, and that's what got me the job. Got me to Nickelodeon.
This is the internet era. Like if you like a show or like a certain style, follow those shows' artists. We all have Instagram or Twitter because that's how we continue to network and maintain our presence in this industry. So like if you like the Loud House, I know for a fact all of us on the Loud House have an Instagram. So it's like you can kind of look at those artists and try to emulate that work and really learn from that. Like on SpongeBob, I mean, there are so many talented people that you can pull from and look at their online presence. It's really easy now to kind of say, okay, I like that. Now let me follow the breadcrumb trail back to the source. Like you can really learn from the artists that are working on the shows that you want to work on. A lot of people are like, oh, well, how do I get eyes on my storyboard? And a big thing that I think a lot of people forget about is like your social media can be your storyboard link. Like, I mean, Dave can attest to this. When I was a PA and we were looking for work on SpongeBob, I would send him just people on Instagram. We would literally pass back and forth like, hey, did you see this person? Do you see this person? You know, hey, like we've already reached out there. Let's check out this one. And I know people who have gotten jobs just strictly based off of a recruiter found them on Instagram or Twitter and was like, wow, this art is great and it will work for, you know, at least let's test them. Like, let's see if they can storyboard. And a lot of the time, if their art is great like that, it'll probably work out.
Most of our job searching on SpongeBob anyway, nowadays consists of looking through Twitter and Instagram and spotting people, going through artists that we are fans of and looking at who they're following, and then checking it. Just a lot of detective work. And that's kind of how, you know, we do our own recruiting, is just, you know, searching the web and seeing if people have the skills that we're looking for.
If you are a jerk, it does get around. So like you have to like be professional and like careful how you are in like a work environment.
If there's 10 great portfolios that are all kind of lined up like at an even level, people are probably going to go with the one that they recommend. Like, oh, I know them, they're a really nice person. And from what I can tell, they want to learn and grow and will take feedback. I feel like at least what's helped me in my career has always been wanting critique and like wanting feedback, because if you're hungry for that, you're just going to keep putting forward, and people are so willing to be teachers. I mean, that's why we're panelists right now too, is like to offer advice and like help. And there are so many people that are willing to help.
That is one thing that you encounter from time to time, is people that come in and are defensive of their work, that aren't as open to feedback. And if you can't take feedback, this may not be the right industry, because we all get feedback, especially when things get tight in the business, when jobs are not as plentiful as they are. All this stuff really matters when people are making decisions on who to bring people in. If there's 15 people that can do a fantastic job, the person hits the deadlines, the person that's not creating drama, the person that all these are little things that may be in the back of a producer's mind when making those decisions. And you got to get into this for the long haul and think about what you want your reputation in this business to be. it's a brand new show, then there's a learning curve that everybody's going through, so you're not going to be alone. But if it's a show that's established, one big thing that it's important to do is watch the show that you're applying for, or that you're joining. Know what you're in for, whether it be the style of staging they're going for, the style of humor if it's a comedy. The ability to adapt style-wise is a skill that you improve upon, but the biggest part, I would say, of that is knowing what you're getting into. Do a little research on the show. If I wanted to work on Loud House and there was a position open, I would be poring over episodes of Loud House and studying which kind of shots they use and what kind of staging they like, what kind of expressions they give the characters, what's the pacing like and all that. And it shows when you approach a show, it shows when you've done your homework too.
I don't think you can ever be wrong in wanting to pursue multiple things, you know what I mean? Like, I've done character designs and prop designs on shows now, and I'm a storyboard artist by day, so you can kind of dabble in everything. But I think when you apply for a specific show, I do personally think that it's important to kind of say, on this show, this is what I want to do, rather than on this show, I'll do anything. Because it's kind of, it shows your genuine interest when you say like, hey, I want to be a storyboard artist, especially if it's on this show. And maybe if you're like, okay, that didn't work out, well, then it's like, well, I also do animatic editing if that's maybe an option. I would say probably try to focus on one at a time, especially if you're going for certain studios.
The important part is to know that you can take breaks. You don't have to draw all the time. You can chill, relax, find other hobbies, other things that interest you other than art, and that will help inform your art. I like educating myself in history, I like learning about different things while I'm drawing. So that kind of helps change it up from just art all the time. And you never know when it's going to help you in the future. I picked up sign language in high school and it's helped me out on a random show here. You never know when your other hobbies or your other interests will help inform your art, and that will help you kind of have something other than just drawing all the time.
This is a business where the more you work at, the more you're going to succeed. It leads directly to success. I mean, one person told me when I was getting started, they have a big stack of paper, you just fill up every single page, and half of them are going to be complete garbage and they're going to be things you're ashamed of. But the more you draw, the fewer those pages are going to start appearing, and you can't help but get better.
Always being willing to learn and willing to help someone else is kind of the big thing that I always felt about animation. If you are at a level where you can start to understand something enough to teach it to someone else, then that means that you're learning even more.
There's so much to study and there's so many resources you have. And I wish that if I could go back in time, I would just be okay, Skillshare, online classes, social medias, blog spots, just digest it. There's so much available to you. And like everyone else was saying, if you're drawing, you're learning. Don't be afraid to look at something, draw it, or draw something of your own and then look at something else and be like, oh, okay, I could do this to make it better.
If you want to get into this business, you can get into this business. And, where there's a will, there is a way, for sure, in this business, more now than ever.
Don't be discouraged. A lot of people I feel I talk to, they get intimidated by other people's artwork, or they feel sometimes age is a thing, or don't be discouraged to just go for it. The more you draw, the more you grow.